Annyeong! Welcome to Delightful! You guys remember Mai-Tai? My fun, fruity, beach-going party girl that I made for that big collaboration we did that one time? Well, I'm looking ahead to summer and dreaming of a beach vacation myself, aren't I always? And that got me in the mood to make Mai-Tai some friends. For real, I was still wearing my winter coat when I began this doll in mid-March. Mid-March! Look, I was born and raised in Texas. These Korean winters feel so long. Without further ado, let's get to the concept art. A Mai-Tai is, as you may know, a refreshing summery cocktail one might enjoy at the beach. To keep that theme going, I thought we could name this next girl Margarita. These dolls aren't so much personifications of the drinks as they are loosely inspired by them though, so mostly I knew that I just wanted lime green to be a featured color. I think it'll look great with Mai-Tai's yellow color palette. Speaking of Mai-Tai, her silhouette is very bottom heavy, by which I mean she's got this big skirt that gives her a triangle shape. So as much as I love the pants and shawl combo of the middle design, I think it's too similar. To balance the pair out, I chose the top heavy design of the third drawing, but added that shawl back in because I really wanted to make it. So that's our final design. If you couldn't tell just from looking at the colored stripes and ruffles, her design draws inspiration from Mexico, a little nod to the origins of the Margarita cocktail. I'll be using the first generation Monster High doll, Headless Headmistress Bloodgood, as the base. In the original Monster High fiction, she was based on the Headless Horseman, which means her head pops right off. They designed it to come on and off easily. As a customizer, I wish every doll was like that. Alright gang, you know the drill. Chop chop! Fish out the leftover plugs with a pair of pliers. This can be done more easily if you periodically soften the head in hot water. Remove the factory paint with 100% pure acetone. Now she's ready to customize. They gave the Headmistress really strong features, didn't they? I guess they were aiming to sculpt a more adult face compared to the teenager main characters. It doesn't really match the vision I have for my own character, but I'll see what I can do. The body's not a perfect fit either, but I decided to go ahead and use this doll because the skin tone was right, you know? And that saves me so much work. Hair! This hank is a mix of two colors, Sour Apple and Envy nylon doll hair from dollyhair.com. It's a beautiful and subtle custom blend, isn't it? I bought this years ago for a doll that never panned out, so it's satisfying to finally use this hair for something. Do you have anything like that in your craft closet? It's like, at last! That one thing I've had for over 10 years! I knew I'd use it eventually! This justifies carrying it around every time I moved house, right? Sometimes you get a small tear in the head like this. Not to worry, here's what to do. Prepare a small weft of hair about the same size as the tear and glue the ends together. Basically, we've made an extra large plug for this specific tear. Wait until the end of the reroute, then slot it in place because it's a bit looser than the other plugs. Flip the head over and fill the head with fabric glue as usual, being sure to coat that special weft we just put in. Let it dry overnight, and when you come back the next day, bundle that beautiful hair away in a protective fabric mask in preparation for the face-up. Pins around the hairline give you the perfect mask. Why bother with masking off the hair? Because of this stuff. Mr. Super Clear Sealant. This stuff is essential for creating a surface to draw on the vinyl face, but will discolor doll hair and make it feel icky too. As always, spray in a ventilated area with your respirator mask on for safety. Yeah, I was working in my pajamas that day. As always, you can find a full list of materials that I use for this doll in the description box below the video. I never know if somebody's watching for the first time, so I always make sure to mention that. I begin with pink pastels over the eyes, apples of the cheeks, and a little on the nose and forehead. This warms up the plastic and makes it look more like real skin. Dusty pastels can also be used to block in the eyebrows and lip color. Refine the pastels with a kneaded eraser. Next, I sharpen the lines and begin to draw the face and eyes with watercolor pencils. I'm feeling confident today, so I jump right in with the black pencil. Sketch in the lash lines, the eyelid, the iris, and those fluffy eyelashes. I decided a dark smoky eyeshadow would match the hot pink lip color well. Mai-Tai has a very colorful eyeshadow look going on, so why didn't I do the same with Margarita? Not sure, but it might have to do with her strong facial features. I didn't want the character to look gaudy, and felt that the hot pink lipstick color was enough. She's walked right up to the line, but I don't think she crosses it. Don't get me wrong, this is a very makeup-heavy look, but still tasteful. I hope you agree. Besides, with the bright lime green eyes, we still get plenty of color in there. I switched to gouache paints to finalize the details and add opacity to the colors. Dot on those oh-so-sparkly eye shines, and we'll call the face done. Two or three final layers of Mr. Super Clear sealant should do the trick, and then you can remove the hair mask. Once I'd finished the face, I was looking at her thinking, are the eyes too big? Like, unsettlingly big? Maybe. I basically stuck to the parameters of the mold, so I don't know how this happened. I mean, it's not like I ever go for realism anyway, but I'm not sure about this one, guys. Let's turn our attention to her outfit. Although far from perfect, I sketched up some rough drafts of her bathing suit and shawl based on existing patterns from my library. Altered from my basic shirt pattern, in fact. So versatile. Pardon the plug. The shawl I stitched up with bright yellow cotton. Next, I would sew on the ribbons, but I don't have any ribbons this small. So we're going to use paint instead. I paint white onto the fabric first, then the colors to make sure they show up nice and bright. Finally, the fringe. I love a good fringe on the end of a garment. All you need is embroidery thread and a little patience. I sew loop by loop across the bottom hem of the shawl and around the cuffs before cutting and trimming the threads straight. Lovely. The swimsuit I cut out of semi-stretchy white rayon, I want to say it is. It wraps around the doll's body like so. I turn under and hem all the edges by hand before adding embroidery thread straps and Velcro in the back. Monster High Doll's sway back design can make clothes like this a challenge to sew, but I think it looks good enough. I prepared 3 long strips of the same fabric and painted stripes on these as well, using the same acrylics. Then I ran a stitch down the raw edge, and gathered each strip until it was a full fluffy ruffle. One at a time, I sew each ruffle to the bathing suit, and voila! It actually came out a little fuller than I intended. These ruffles are really ruffly. I probably should have taken them off and tried again, but it took so long to sew them on that I kept telling myself, this looks fine. What do you think? Too much? The best part about these dolls are the fruity headdresses and accessories, so let's make those next out of air-dry clay. I formed the basic shapes of bananas, watermelon slices, oranges, and more, as well as using the clay to block out her sandals while I'm at it. The bunch of grapes was the biggest challenge. I spent a long time thinking about how to make this because I want the grapes to dangle and drape naturally atop the doll's head. I finally decided to cut a whole bunch of embroidery thread stems and stick a grape on the end of each one. The knot in the thread should help the clay hold on. The next day, after the clay has fully dried, sand down and refine your fruity shapes. Then it's time to paint. A bright paint job really helps sell it. Even rudimentary clay blobs can be painted to look fairly convincing. I'm a better painter than I am a sculptor, so I tend to rely heavily on a good paint job. Much of my acrylic paint is fairly transparent, so it's going to take a couple coats to become opaque. Some of the paints I'm using are fluorescent too, so they look super bright and saturated. I'm loving it! You know what's fun about this hobby? Or really any hobby where miniatures are involved? Anything you make always looks charming. Take a normal thing like an orange slice and shrink it down and it just becomes cute, you know? Everything is so cute when it's small. Look at these little tiny bananas. Once I'm done painting, I take an equally tiny hand drill and drill holes into most of the fruit pieces. The orange slices will be her earrings, and the small fruit slices her belt, so they need metal loops. A rounded pair of jewelry pliers really comes in handy for stuff like this. I'll string the bananas together at the stems, so they all need holes too. I bunch up 4 bananas and 3 bananas, then layer them like so for a full set of bananas. Her flip-flops will get straps, so I prepare a hole for those as well. Then run an embroidery thread loop through like this, gluing the back of the loop to the sole of the shoe and the ends of the threads to the bottom of the shoe, out of sight. The grapes, though, boy, they took some work. I taped them to the edge of my desk to paint them all for starters. I also glossed each individual grape with varnish too, because I want them to be shiny. Once every grape was finally dry, I tied them together in bunches of 5 or more grapes. Combined the bunches into one final mega bunch, and tied them together again. Keeping everything tied, not glued, lets me tug and finesse the shape of the bunch after it's on the doll. What do you think? Was the effort worth it? I like how it drapes, but a part of me thinks I should have saved myself the trouble and just sculpted a solid bunch of clay grapes. Now, to arrange our fruity accessories into a magnificent headpiece. Grab a spare head to make this step easier. Pin a piece of felt onto the head to act as the base. Then, one element at a time, stitch or glue everything to the felt. We'll need to access the pins at the end of all this, so be mindful not to cover them up with a slice of watermelon or anything. Lastly, one of my favorite parts about this headdress, the cocktail umbrella. I love these little things. I trim down the toothpick and hot glue it in place. Remove the pins and the headdress is ready. Before we put it on our doll, though, there's one last step to take, styling the hair. I've drawn her with a full head of curls, so to achieve this look, we're going to use pipe cleaners. That's right, you've probably seen me curl doll hair time and time again with straws and bobby pins. But this method of curling doll hair popped up on my Instagram feed. I think I first saw it on the Doll Planet. It looks really easy, so let's give it a go. Take a pipe cleaner, place it on the top of the doll's head, and wrap the doll's hair all the way down. Pinch the pipe cleaners around the hair at the top and the bottom, and bam, one curler is in place. I divided the hair and placed plenty of pipe cleaner curlers because I want relatively tight, full curls. Once they're all in place on her head and she's looking like Medusa, heat up the kettle and drench the hair with plenty of boiling water. I'm gonna do this over the sink, I'm just miming it here. I wait a full day to make sure the hair is dry before gently unwrapping each ringlet. I did find the pipe cleaners harder to remove than the straws, but overall I'd say this method is way easier and cleaner. I'm definitely going to use this technique from now on. Highly recommend it. Split each ringlet 3 or 4 times to add volume and make the curls look more natural. And we're done! Look at that! Wow. Can I be honest with you guys? I wasn't loving this doll and still wasn't sure about the face right up until the very end here. But now that she's got this waterfall of green curls, like, I love her! Who knew that the hair alone could save this project? See for yourself, like with all the elements of this doll combined, it's her incredible head of hair that pulls it all together and does the heavy lifting in my opinion. And with that, let's sit back and enjoy her photo shoot. This lady is a tall drink of water, y'all. I hadn't realized how big the Headmistress Bloodgood doll was. I guess I never held her up next to my other dolls. So her large scale wasn't intended, but I love that it happened. She really commands the space, like a highly paid runway model or something. I'm also very pleased with how her colors came out. Monochrome or limited color palettes are easy, but multicolor palettes are the hardest in my opinion. It's a challenge getting bright colors to work well together in one design, and I think Margarita struck a really nice balance while still being super saturated. We're almost ready for the beach, but wait, someone's missing. Yes, I'm getting a vision for a third doll in this fruity lineup. I've already got the concept art worked out and I can't wait to make her, so make sure you come on back later for another fun doll customizing video. Thank you so much for watching, and stay artsy! Annyeong!